So all of you may not know this, but I am so lucky because I have incredible board members. I mean, it's not really it's the organization. I mean, okay, fine. I'm the founder and executive director, whatever, but we have incredible board members who are so deeply committed to this work and trying to help us spread our message and support as many people as possible. And so I'm really excited that I have another board member, and I'm going to use plural, which you'll see in a second why I'm saying plural, board member slash board members here today to share with you their story. And I think, you know, all of the people that are on our board are here because most of them, let me say, are here because they've had their own personal journeys. But different people are ready to share at different points, and some are not ever ready to share publicly. But I'm deeply grateful to Rabbi Danny Stein and his wife Tamara. Tamara, I pronounced your name right, right? I
Yeah.
got it right? Okay.
Yeah.
I was like, all of a sudden I got nervous that I was going to pronounce it wrongly.
No. Camera, like
Okay,
camera.
perfect. Okay, perfect. And Tamara, and they're here to share their story. Now, officially, okay, Danny, and
Mhm.
we're gonna call him Danny, even though he's Rabbi Danny, and he's walking in. Okay, great. Officially, Danny is our board member, but we're here because, as we all know, it takes more than one person to make a baby. And if spouses are willing to come together and share their stories together, it's always much more powerful. So let's start with you, Tamara. Say hello to everybody, tell people a little bit about you, your background, and then, we'll get to Danny and then how the two of you met, and we'll do all those things. So, but why don't you start us off?
Yeah. Thank you for having us on the podcast. This is exciting. And I was telling you earlier that I like to talk. So it's even more exciting in that way for me. My name is Tamara Stein. I am originally from Northern California, but I moved to New York City to the Upper West Side about 2.5 years ago via Boston, via Chicago, DC. I have kind of lived all over, but after finishing up grad school in Boston, Danny and I moved here in 2023. And we moved here because Danny and I got the opportunity to run what we run and what we do here in New York City, which is a community called Base Upper West Side. It is a community of 20s and 30s who, from our home, uh, do lots of awesome Jewish things together, such as celebrating holidays. And we run Jewish classes. We run programming for couples and interfaith couples and queer folks and 20s and 30s, like just kind of like everything you could think of, like a synagogue would do, but out of our home. It's through Mem Global, the larger organization that provides this type of work. And we really believe in this type of Judaism, this organic community building Judaism. So we moved here to do this job. So that's what Danny does. He's a rabbi. He full time runs this community. And I, on my own, have a job where I do reproductive health education for a nonprofit. Um, I'm a lawyer by I don't know, schooling, but I don't practice as a lawyer, for better or for worse. And we live here now, like I said, on the Upper West Side with thankfully, after a few years, which we'll get into, our two little kids, Ruthie and Avi. Do you wanna come in? Yeah, you can.
Wait, but Tamara, but as Rabbi Danny is coming in, I have so many questions. So, first of all, let's just go all the way back. Like, you travel to all of these places. Like, when did you meet Danny? Like that's my first question,
Oh,
and
yeah.
then I'll get to my 17 other questions.
Yes, Danny and I met in undergrad at American University, go Eagles,
Woohoo!
in 2012 in college, and then we were in college together. We met, we were both very involved in Hillel, and are still very closely in touch with our Hillel director, who's now a good friend of ours. We used to lead reform services together in the basement of our Hillel, and yeah, so we met, and then I was working in DC. Then we moved to Chicago for a couple years. Danny's from outside Chicago, and Danny, I don't know if you know, you probably do know this, but Danny pre-rabbi life, was a professional magician for many years.
I do know that. I remember I came across it. I don't remember how, but I was like, "Whoa." I'm like, "Maybe we need to have some kind of an event where, like, we're doing, like, a magician and, like, doing carnival stuff," and yeah, okay, but that's for another topic. Okay,
Yeah,
keep
that's
going.
yeah, but, yeah, would. Yeah, I feel like also people don't so Danny side note, when we got married, Danny changed his last name to my last name. My last name was always Stein, so his magic he was always the magic of Danny Dubin, which now for people who didn't know him before we were married, I feel like it's kind of like a stage name, like, that's why I think when people see it, it's a different person also. Anyways, yeah, then we moved to Boston for Danny to start rabbinical school in 2018. And then I went to law school there, and we both graduated and came here. Um, and yeah.
Okay. All right. I feel like you answered many of my 17 questions, so I feel like I don't have much to ask anymore in regard to that. But Danny, can you I mean, Tamara just gave us the, you know, summary of sort of where she grew up and her trajectory. Tell us a little bit about you and your background.
Yeah, it's good to be here, speaking with you.
It's
Um,
great to have you.
yeah. Um, I feel like it's one of those people who are, like, on a morning talk show. It's like, "Good to be here." Anyways, um,
By the way, it's not the morning, everyone. It's about 12 o'clock in the afternoon, but
yeah,
it's all right. They're gonna listen to this at some point later on. It's not gonna matter
exactly,
what time it is. It's all good.
Sounds about right.
exactly.
Like
Um,
others.
so I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago, Deerfield, and I grew up very active in Reform Jewish community through youth group and camp and synagogue life, and, when I was growing up, I kind of had, especially in high school, these two passions: one for Jewish communal life, and then the other one being for magic as a magician. I performed like birthday parties around town, and when I was in college, performing for corporate parties and private events, and that's certainly a part of my life. And being a part of Jewish community was something really important to me growing up. Um, and I had a rabbi with me in high school at summer camp who said, as a rabbi, you're with people in the most significant moments of their lives. And that really kind of just clicked something for me of, oh, like maybe I'll think about becoming a rabbi. I remember when I was studying for my bar mitzvah, my mom said, "Oh, maybe you'll be a rabbi," and I thought that was like the most insulting thing she could say. Um, but eventually, the idea of like being with people at significant moments, intimate moments of their lives, really resonated with me, and still very much does. And met Tamara in college, my freshman year at American, and I had a number of experiences throughout my time in college that really um, set me on a path of exploration in terms of my Jewish identity and practice. Um, Being a part of some Orthodox communities in Israel and in DC, and really asking the question of like, what does it mean to be X or Y or Z kind of Jew. And so spending a number of years really trying to figure out that question. What does it mean for me, Danny, to be a Jew? And also like and combine all the different values I have of my upbringing. Uh, and also like what does it mean for me and Tamara to create a Jewish home together? Like one that really highlights the pluralism of our practice and of our thought. And so I went to Hebrew College Rabbinical School, which is it's a pluralistic institution. So it was a wonderful place for me and Tamara, to grow and learn and study. And now being a rabbi for 2.5 years, I really try to help folks connect with Torah, Judaism in deeply meaningful ways, um, and to help create an understanding that Torah can really like be a part of every single moment of our lives to create holiness, and also that folks should bring like, all of themselves to the experience and all of themselves to Jewish community. That we don't ask for anything to be left at the door, but for you to bring really everything. And one thing we try to highlight in our Jewish communities is really talking about issues of fertility journeys within the Jewish community, and without the Jewish community, and outside the Jewish community, because so we know from our experiences and from many other people's experiences, it can be very isolating. And so we really try to talk about it often at base and make sure folks know that we are people who, with whom they can talk about their fertility journeys. And it's been really impactful to provide outlet amongst others for folks in the base Upper West Side community.
Absolutely, and I mean, I've seen it in real time because I've been there, I think, twice,
Yeah,
maybe?
something like that.
Yeah, something like
Good time.
that. Um, and had an opportunity to interact with some of your community members and different fertility programming, and it's been very powerful. It was really powerful for me personally. But if you'll allow me, I I want to go back because obviously we're here today to talk about your fertility stories, and stories. Um, I I'm curious, both of you come from different spaces in terms of your own Jewish backgrounds, and but yet you have this beautiful relationship, marriage together. And I'm sure at some point the conversation was like, well, let's think about like what our family is going to look like and how many kids ideally we want and when ideally we would want to have them. And also I'm curious about knowing that you were going into communal life, and this question is for you, Danny, like, and about how did you think about what it would mean to, try did you know that you would struggle? Did you, or that was sort of something that came along afterwards, and then you had to deal with communal life and your own personal struggles at the same time? Okay, I'm asking too many questions. Let me go back. Okay. I'm so excited about having the 2 of you here. My brain is just working in overdrive. So, simply, what did the 2 of you think about when you were thinking about building your families and the timeline? And then did that match up with reality?
Can I can I take some of
Go.
this?
Yeah.
Um, I am someone who I don't know if it's because I was raised by 2 lawyers or because 'cause I'm just, like, psycho, but I am someone whose, like, brain is always in overdrive and always thinking, like, 10 steps ahead and, like, analyzing everything. Um, so I, like, always I don't know, I feel like when people will say, like, "Oh, young people, like, they never worry about anything, like, they just think they're invincible." Like, as a kid, I was always like, "I'm going to die in a car crash." Like, I always have been thinking I know, but I have always been like, "Wait, no, I know that there's a lot of issues, and I think we should all be planning for them and aware of them," and that was just, like, always kind of how my brain worked. I My first job in Boston when I was, like, 23, I think it was, like, before you were even engaged.
Yeah.
My boss at the time, I was working at the ACLU of Massachusetts and fundraising, and she told us she was expecting, and she was like, "By the way, IVF in Massachusetts fully covered by, like, an insurance mandate. Just fun fact, good to know." And I came home, I remember this so clearly, and I told Danny, we were not even engaged. We were planning on getting engaged, like, in the next few months. And I was like, "I think, like, if this is when we're getting engaged, this is when we're getting married, this is when we wanna try start thinking about trying to have a family. I think we should move up that timeline because I know that fertility challenges are really, really common. I know miscarriages are really common, and we are for sure we may live in Massachusetts beyond when you graduate rabbinical school, but we are for sure here locked in until 2023. So if you do the math and if we do need IVF, we should do it while we live in a state that is covered." I think you were probably like, "What the heck?" Um, I mean, no, I'm not saying this to say everyone should be as, like, psychotic and, paranoid and whatever. And that being said, I do think that, like, we were a little bit more prepared for what we were about to face because I think we came into it very pragmatically. And I will say we did IVF for essentially free. I mean, we paid for PGT testing. There was a few different components,
Medication.
some medications, but thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars ended up being saved because we did it in Massachusetts 8 months before we ended up leaving Massachusetts. Because we're very fortunate to be in a state where that was covered and because that was something we were thinking
Mhm.
about. Um, so yeah, I think we were always pretty, like, realistic about what things could look like, for better or for worse. Not to say that everyone.
But you say "we," but really it was you, and then I'm curious, Danny, for
No,
you, like, was
Yeah,
this
yeah.
I
I
said
mean,
it, and then you were like, "Oh, okay, that's real."
just echoing what Tamara said, we are very fortunate that we lived in a state, at the time that it was incredibly affordable option for us to pursue IVF due to the insurance coverage, and that's not the case for most states in the country. and most Americans, or most people living in this country. And so it was an incredible blessing, and something that hopefully will be spreading for everybody in the near future.
I mean,
Um, yeah, when Tamara said that, before we even engaged, we'd recently moved to Boston. Um, I don't really remember my reaction. Like, it was not definitely was not something I was immediately thinking of. Okay, we need to act on this now. Um, but um, but I certainly remember Tamara saying that. And so it was clear when we met, also in college, that we both wanted kids. And it was also clear when we started dating in college, eventually, that we knew we would be each other's partners. We would be each other with each other for the long term. That was clear throughout our time in college. Um, and We originally were going to get married August 2020. We did not get married August 2020. We ended up having a civil signing, but we pushed off the ceremony, the Jewish ceremony, and the reception until 2021. Um, and and planning, a wedding and all of that is its own thing. And doing it during COVID is its own journey as well. And so there's a lot of uncertainty in our life. Like, when are we going to celebrate with our family? When are we going to
When we're gonna
uh,
see our family.
see our family, of course, and obviously that's a very dark time for many people. Um, and so there was a lot of uncertainty floating in the air. Um, and and so in terms of what the future looked like for us was uncertain as well, because we couldn't definitively say when we would see people, when any event in our life was gonna take place. Um, should
and
I?
so
Yeah.
yeah, and so okay, Tamara had this plan. She presented it to you and said, like, "Okay, we need to, like, move up the timeline. We need to X, Y, and Z, blah, 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 and it needs to be blah, blah, blah." So, okay, things started easing up, COVID restrictions started easing up. You had your ceremony,
The
in 2020 in the summer of 2021, and then then what happens? Like, when did you start trying right away? What I mean, I know that you ended up in IVF because we've already discussed it, but, uh, you don't just nor I was gonna say normal people, but that's not the right way to say it. People, when they're trying to have a baby, don't just jump to IVF. There are steps that are taken beforehand. So how did you even know that did you know that you might need it, or was that just a discovery when you tried to get pregnant and then it didn't work?
Yeah, we had no evidence to show we had pre-existing conditions, or we had any sort of genetic matches that would make it difficult to
No.
um,
We wanted
build a
we
family.
wanted to do genetic testing.
Yeah,
We, to be honest, just like with everything in the, like, 7 rescheduling of our weddings, just didn't prioritize it.
yeah,
And I
and
think that was yeah.
yeah, but also, like, genetic
No, that had nothing
that
to
has
do
nothing to
with
do with it
it.
in the
I
end,
just think it's a
thankfully.
good practice.
It's interesting because as uh as a rabbi, like, one of my duties is often to, like, tell couples genetic testing, genetic testing, genetic testing. And that is something that we didn't it ended up being fine, thank God. Like, but that was not a reason, for as far as we know, for any of our miscarriages or fertility journey. But we did not proactively do genetic testing, which was, in hindsight, like, not the right move. Um, and But pretty soon after we got married, we wanted to try to have a family. And Tamara got pregnant, and around the Chagim, in fall of 2021. And we went to an appointment around 6 weeks, maybe
No,
8
later.
weeks,
No,
maybe
because they
eight.
made us wait later, and
Oh,
I
the minutes, wait, maybe 10 weeks or
I don't
something.
know. Yeah.
Maybe somewhere between 6 and 10 weeks. I'm not sure exactly when. Um, and The sonographer very clearly would not say anything for certain without a doctor there, but it was very clear that something with the growth was off. Um, and they requested that we come back in 10 days for another scan. Um, and at that moment, Tamara was reading between the lines and interpreting, well, okay, this is not a viable pregnancy. I was very much holding on to some sort of hope. But we had scheduled that night to spend the weekend in the Berkshires with friends. So we went to the Berkshires with friends, and while we were driving to the Berkshires, we hadn't told anybody that Tamara was pregnant at all. While we were driving to the Berkshires, we called both of our parents to say both Tamara was pregnant and it's probably a non-viable pregnancy. Well, but we'll know more in 10 days for certain. Seems
Sorry,
like yeah.
can I just say something going off of that? We didn't tell anyone that I was pregnant the first time. This is like a plug I wanna make. I think there's a misconception that, like, when people don't share that they're pregnant before a certain time, it's because they don't want anything bad to happen, and it'll be like, I don't know, you're being superstitious or whatever, and then a lot of people will be like, "Oh, no, like, it is good to share because if anything happens, then you, like, have people in your network." I don't know why it's such a binary. Like, I didn't wanna share any of the times we were pregnant for a certain amount of time or people or whatnot, not because I thought that sharing was gonna cause something, but because I very pragmatically, again, knew the outcome, and when you tell people you are pregnant, most people's response, like normal people, are like, "That's so exciting, congrats," and, like, I was like, "Wait, it's not exciting because it's, like, not fully a thing yet," and then you feel like you're weirdly, like, patrolling how people respond in their emotions, and I had no problem telling people. Like, I told more people that I miscarried than I told I was pregnant, like, every time, and to fast forward, we then had another pregnancy and miscarriage that winter, um, and then we had another one over the summer, and then we dove into IVF, but I just wanna be clear, we didn't not share that I was pregnant because of any type of superstitions and because of any fear around telling people then I wasn't pregnant. Um, it was more of the complexities because of, like, holding something that I think people are excited about when you're not, like, fully in that excited stage because you don't, like, see it in that much of a
Yeah.
uh
I mean, and I also wonder even more so for the second loss and the third loss where, like, you would even though I mean, you're a pragmatist, as you said, and you're a person who, like, lives in data, and you know that we all know, or people should know, that miscarriage happens in 1 in 4 pregnancies, so even before your first pregnancy, you knew that it was a possibility, and that was something that was real and tangible, but the fear after you've already had one, even though having one doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have another or another, unless there's some sort of medical issue going on, which we're not going to get into right now. That's just broadly speaking. Um, there's still this irrational fear of like going into a pregnancy is not naive for anyone who's had a loss.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So that's yeah. So we call them
Yeah.
sorry, I didn't
No, but I
yeah.
think that's something that we both carry, certainly with our own experiences, in Tamara's pregnancies, but also when we're talking with others, with family, friends, community members, of like really, well, one, try to mirror kind of the emotions that people share when they share that they're pregnant. And certainly for folks who we know are on
Or expect.
or expecting, or for folks who are on, yeah, or are expecting, and for folks who are on fertility journeys, um, really acknowledging, as folks know, that like just because somebody is pregnant does not mean it will end up in a live birth, and the complexity of emotions that that holds. Um, that's one of the reasons why I actually really love the custom of saying B'sha'a Tova, rather than Mazel Tov, because B'sha'a Tova being like in good time, which also has its complexities with that phrase, but like
Totally.
just saying Mazel Tov, like for me, it's just like ignoring any kind of
Complexity.
complexity or pain that could happen that hopefully will not happen, but like complexity and reality of the moment. And I think one of the reasons, we're skipping some steps right now, but I think one of the reasons we took a long time before we really kind of were open about the pregnancy that led to Ruthie, our firstborn. Yeah, it wasn't until well into the third trimester that we were like very open about and telling our parents, share with whoever, because we were always holding our breath, and probably not until 30 or so weeks where we really kind of like, okay, like maybe now we'll share with folks more openly and like strangers, um, because of this fear of not wanting folks to acknowledge the complexity of what it means to be expecting. Um, so backing up, we're driving to the Berkshires, and we're calling our family, calling our parents, and telling them uh, that Tamara was pregnant and it would probably be a non-viable pregnancy. And it was an exhausting process telling people. It was great that we were with friends over the weekend, over Shabbat and the weekend, to just be together with loving friends. Um, and then 10 days after the first appointment, we went back to the doctor, where there was another scan, and it was confirmed, yes, it would be it, the growth had stopped. Um, so Tamara had options, a few different options of abortion procedures to get for this term that we learned, missed abortion, um, and which is when the fetus stops growing but doesn't pass on its own. Um, and Her sister's wedding was, no, I'm explaining it.
I know,
You go
I
explain
love
it
the
to
I
the
know, it's just
to
funny 'cause he's
the
a
people.
doctor,
No,
in case you didn't know.
But our I was gonna say, but our audience doesn't necessarily
I
know,
know,
so
it's
it's
just funny.
good. It's
and this,
good.
anyways, and Tamara's sister's wedding was
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
less than a week after we got the news from the second scan. And
Oh
so
god.
basically, like, I'll let you explain. You had to
Oh,
choose
yeah.
kind of which procedure would you want that would make it where you could be fully present at the wedding,
Yeah,
basically,
Oh my
in a
goodness.
different state.
it was
Uh,
horrible. Yeah,
Oh
that's
my goodness.
we were just talking about this because it was actually just my sister and brother-in-law's anniversary, which means it was the anniversary of all of this. And yeah, yeah, so this was on a Wednesday, so I ended up having a procedure, similar to a D&C, but I was, like, awake for it and whatnot, but I ended up I mean, I don't know how much I'm allowed to share here, or I guess
You
what
you
like
can
yeah.
you you can share as much as you want to share.
Yeah, I ended up, like, bleeding all weekend a few days later, which is what is sometimes very normal for after a procedure like this, but it was my sister's wedding, and I just remember, like, all weekend, and, again, like, we were really open about what happened, but it was, like, her wedding, so we were, like, also not trying to be like, "Hello, everyone, pay attention to us fully," and also it was, like, very fresh, so we were pretty open, like, even a few weeks later, but this was, like, this happened on Wednesday, and then we went to Colorado on Friday. So it was just, like, very hard, and then a few weeks later, I was, like, still in the hospital with all these infections. They realized that some of the placenta had been retained, so I had to go in for an emergency D&C, and this is my first year no, this is my second year of law school, so this was during finals week, so I had to reschedule all my finals.
Oh,
I was in the hospital all night, and then finally, it was, like I think it was, like, New Year's Day that next year, because that was then, like, December that I had the retained placenta. New Year's Day, I remember we were at home in California with my family, and I got my period, and I was so excited, and I came downstairs, and I told my mom and dad I got my period because it was, like, my body resetting, and for those who've been through this experience, you'll know that, like, getting your period is sometimes, like, the worst thing ever because it's your body being like, "Okay, they're done, like, they're no longer there." They being whatever pregnancy was inside you, and also it's, like, really great because your body is like, "We're done, like, we can move on and kind of go again." So, I found it very exciting on New Year's Day, and I just remember, like, telling my dad, like, I was, like, a 13-year-old girl. So excited, but yeah, and then in February, luckily, I got pregnant again, very, like, jaded the whole time, very skeptical. Yeah, many people have miscarriages once, like you said, and don't again. I was like, "Oh, I feel like I'm not gonna be most people," and then I was right, like, the same thing happened, um,
it was the exact same. Both pregnancies, first pregnancies, two pregnancies with the exact same chromosomal abnormality, trisomy 16.
which is the most common
Yes, they
chromosomal
have
abnormality. Yeah,
two, and we still don't know.
I
We know.
I I I had one of those also, but yeah,
Oh,
keep going.
okay.
high five.
Yeah, exactly.
And we met with genetic counselors. We still have no idea why this happened 2 times in a row, which is incredibly unlikely.
At age
Uh, at
29.
relatively young age, like, um, so nobody's still given us any answers as to why that happens, and we'll never know. Um, and after the second miscarriage, I think we started talking about IVF, and Tamara was explaining for me, which was new, that like PGTA testing and the fact that we could test embryos now for chromosomal abnormalities, um, and that was something you really want to kind of pursue next after the second miscarriage. And I was holding out one more time, to kind of hold off hope that that would happen without pursuing IVF. But in the meantime, we scheduled consult with a doctor at Boston IVF, um,
Mhm.
and and during that summer, Tamara did get pregnant.
But that was after we did all this as did you ever do IVF?
I did not, but I did everything up to IVF, like, we
Okay.
never got to IVF, but yes, there's a ton of testing that you need to
A
do.
Yeah.
lot of
Anytime
testing.
like, you walk into a fertility doctor, and even if you're not, like, you don't know that IVF is your end game, like, they're like, "Here, we'll schedule 17 procedures and 47 blood tests," and
Yeah.
yeah,
Yes,
like, it's absurd. It's
You're
absurd.
like,
yes,
"What's going on?"
a
Yeah.
lot
Yeah.
of procedures.
Yeah.
Mainly for Tamara,
During
some for me, but mainly for Tamara.
during all of those testing, we learned that I had Asherman syndrome, which is where you have
Oh,
scar tissue in your uterus. They said most likely probably from the different pregnancies and DNCs, but I mean, there's no way to know, like, for sure ever what's there, but they were like, "Yeah, that's probably that," and then I, like, didn't get pregnant for a few months, so they were like, "That's probably that," so we were gonna have a surgery to remove it, and then and so
just to be clear, surgery to remove the scar tissue, I'm just explaining for
the scar
everybody
tissue,
else. Okay.
sorry, yeah,
Yeah,
the scar
go
tissue,
ahead.
um, and we were, like, kinda like, "Let's try once more on our own," knowing that it's risky because if you have scar tissue in your uterus, that also leads to chance of
Yeah,
miscarriage on top of, apparently the embryos and fetuses we were making already seemed to have, like, high chances of miscarriage, so we were like, "This is kind of risky," but for anyone who's done any type of fertility treatments, everything takes, like, 1,000 years. They're like, "Great, just do this medication, and we'll see you in 3 months," and you're like, "3 months? Oh my god, like, all of my best friends are gonna have babies in the next 3 months, like, that is 7 years
it
away."
felt like every week felt so long, every month felt like longer.
Yeah, 'cause
It just a summer it was probably the longest summer. Summer 2021 was probably the longest
that's
summer.
22.
2022 was
Yeah.
probably the longest summer of my life.
'Cause, like,
Yeah,
everyone's getting pregnant and everyone's, like, doing all these things, and you're, like, just still on the phone with your nurses. But whatever, they were like, "Yeah, probably don't try on your own right now," but of course we did because I don't know. And
I think we wanted to see if we tried it on our own and it worked,
yeah, you
and
never know.
live birth, amazing. Knowing also that there's like random occurrences, nobody can explain why, and if we tried it on our own and it didn't work, then okay, that was
Yeah,
definitely an indicator to pursue
yeah.
IVF.
It's also, like, a really it takes a lot of, discipline to not try to get pregnant when what you want is a baby, and I think most people who are yeah, we were very lucky, we didn't seem to be having fertility issues in getting pregnant. Usually people who are having those challenges while pursuing treatments are still trying on their own, um, but we weren't, so it seemed like a lot of resistance to be like, "Let's not even try on our own," while just, like, waiting for some doctors, but whatever, we did. I then had, like, what they call a chemical pregnancy, which is a very early miscarriage where, I don't know, I was pregnant for, like, a week and a half, uh, and then I started, like, bleeding and lost it all, so luckily we didn't have to get to, like, the DNC and weeks of being sick and whatever, like we did the other 2 pregnancies, but that was, like, right before we were gonna start IVF, and that was kinda like the nail in the coffin of, like, "Okay, like,
Yeah,
we clearly just need to do this." Had the procedure, to remove the scar tissue, did IVF, did an egg retrieval, made embryos. Think we were very, very lucky and were able to make embryos, which a lot of people aren't on one IVF cycle or multiple IVF cycles. We're very lucky that we were able to get some embryos. We got, I think, 11 embryos. Only 5 of them were genetically normal, which also seemed to match the data with my miscarriages of having, like, over 50% were genetically abnormal for 29, 30-year-olds, which I think gave us a lot of, like, "Oh, we were right. We were right to go this route because they kept saying, like, "It's not that likely at your age and your health to be having so many, like, these 2 were kind of flukes," but the data show that it actually, like, for some reason, it didn't seem to be very fluky, at least according to that one round of fluky is not a medical term, of IVF.
It's a perfect term for what you're describing. We all get it. We all
Uh,
get it.
but yeah, so and then To end, we did an IVF transfer also during finals that next December.
I
Uh,
mean, why? Like, why? I mean, I know why. I'm guessing why.
Right.
Because, like, it's a lot of hurry up and wait. Like, you were, like, had been doing this for such a long time, so I'm guessing it was, like, the first opportunity, and you said,
Oh,
Oh,
"Yeah."
yeah. I
yeah.
mean, one thing we really took from this experience is the understanding that, well, first off, obviously, we wanted to have a child as quickly as we could, as I think a lot of people experience, but also the understanding that when you are working with a fertility clinic, whether, you're pursuing IVF, you're freezing your eggs, IUI, anything, you jump when the doctors and the nurses say jump.
Yeah.
And whether they say, "Come here at 6:30 AM for blood draw or procedure tomorrow," like, great, that's
You
what you do, and you
y
cancel whatever, and you don't go on trips, and that's just
yeah.
I remember, people would say to us, "Oh," insensitive comments that a lot of people in this community get, "Enjoy the sleep while you have it," and things like that, uh, but it's such a blessing to, like, wake up to screaming children, and also, like, we were not getting a lot of sleep when pursuing IVF, and the uncertainty of not
No.
knowing what that's gonna look like is very real, um, and the stress and the anxiety that it creates is so real, and I think that's one thing that our experience showed us was the uncertainty, and really you jump when the doctors say jump, and it's totally out of your control.
And when you want something so badly, like, you just have this hyper or I'll speak from myself, like, I had this hyper fixation to just move as quickly as possible. I also think that, like, going through miscarriages or going through any type of loss, like, it really alters your brain chemistry, and it can really mess you up, and one thing it did for me when I was, like which is this is really unhealthy, but, like, every day that would go by after we, like, lost certain pregnancies, like, I would think, like, this is an extra day in my life or an extra week in my life where my, like, future kids are getting, like, 1 day less with their grandparents because, like, they're not like, which is such a horrible way of thinking, but I had this, like, thing in my brain where I was just like, um and we can edit that out because I think that could be, like, really traumatic for if you want to, for certain people going through this experience.
I was gonna say, I'm literally sitting here with my notebook here and wanting to pull that quote out. If you're okay keeping we don't have to decide
No, no,
now.
no.
No, of course. I'm fine with that.
I think it's a very powerful way of describing the intensity of those
Oh, wanting to
emotions.
pull it out to, like, highlight it? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
I just don't wanna
yeah.
yeah, if you yeah, I'm totally fine. I think I was just because really that what it was like I was supposed to have this baby, they stopped growing inside of me, and every week it took to get whatever that baby or babies would look like. I mean, it really was, like, I felt like the clock was running, um, and obviously, like, you can't live your life in that way, but that is really what it was. So
I mean,
so
even today we talk about, "Oh, our first pregnancy, the child would be
oh,
X
all the
years old
time.
today," and which is, I know, common.
Yeah, and in a much healthier way, I think, than we used
Yeah,
to think about it, given that
yeah.
we have 2 living kids, but, yeah, so we did a transfer, it failed.
Hold on. I just wanna stop you for a second because I think that that point just needs to just digest for a minute here. Uh, what both of you just said is very powerful and really, like, just, like, exactly the emotions that people are feeling, and I'm using myself here as well. There is a constant internal clock in
Mhm,
all of our brains. Anyone who's going through any kind of fertility journey, we're constantly thinking, and I'm just going to use myself here. Like, I always, the way you just said, Danny, like, you were thinking, like, how old would this baby have been if that baby lived? And I used to play the math, the clock, the math, however you want to, like, play this. Like, I would always do it like, well, my most of my miscarriages, for the people in the audience who don't know, most of my miscarriages happened after my 3rd child, and I was always thinking, like, well, how old, like, what's the age gap gonna be if I get pregnant now and this is a pregnancy that would actually be a good one as opposed to a baby that would die? Like, we're always
mhm,
playing with those numbers, always.
and that's the, like, loop in your head that will drive you
Insane.
Insane because it is never ending. I mean, just the idea we used to talk about getting lapped. I think everyone knows what I mean when you say that. Like, you're still trying to have one baby, and then certain people are having 2. Like, we would literally be like, "We're getting lapped."
Or people just got married, just met, got married, had a baby, like, in
Yeah,
the
and
2-year
there's
span. Of
people we've lapped, so I'm sure people look at us and or
course.
you get to a due date for a baby that should have been, or you get to a number of, like, months that you've been trying, and you think about, like, "Oh, if we had gotten pregnant the first time, we would now," and that math will, like, tear you apart and, like, spit you out, but it is so human, and those are all the things that come with this journey that, like,
Yeah,
aren't like, you don't like, until you're there, until you don't know. Um, yeah,
yeah.
and yeah. So
Yeah. Oh, hold on, before you do this, Danny, can you tell us, like, where you guys were still in Boston, you when this was happening, you were in rabbinical school, so you were
Yeah.
surrounded, and Tamara, you were working, so you surrounded by people, but you weren't being pastoral in the sense that you didn't have a community at that point to kind of have to manage, or
Yeah.
did you? Like, I'm always interested in the ideas of, like, people who are in public spheres, who have a public presence, who are going through very private circumstances. And I know the two of you were talking to some people, but, like, did that come up at that point? Like, that tension, or was it only, and again, we're gonna get to the rest of your story, but was it only when you moved to New York and things were like, when did that tension arise, or did it?
Yeah, well, because I was in rabbinical school, I had internships, for the first
Ah,
year at a synagogue and then the second year at a Hillel, and so it's different than if I were in where I am now, like, as a community rabbi. Uh, the faculty, student body at my school was very understanding for those I was not I was open about it, but not, like, screaming from the rooftops about it. Like, I told who had to be told, and, like, if people knew, whatever, but, like, I wasn't going around every day sharing it with folks, at school. And the faculty were supportive when I had to, skip things or miss things. Um, but in my internship, you know, it came up at the synagogue. It came up sometimes with community members, but, like, I was teaching the religious school and working with B'nai Mitzvah students and such, and leading services. But it was really, we talk about, like, you preach from wounds, not you preach from scars, not like open wounds. Uh, and this was very much I was in an open wound, so I wasn't talking about it like from the bima
you
so
did
much.
on your final
My
sermon
final on my
on
final Devar Torah, where I kind of, like, wrapped up my time at the synagogue, I did mention it. The
wow.
Devar Torah was all about gratitude, and so I expressed my gratitude for this community during this hard time. Um,
and you directly named, like, "In this year that I've been here, we've had
yeah,
all these miscarriages,"
yeah,
which I think was very powerful
very much
from
so. And, like, there
from
were
the beginning.
community members who shared their experiences, and which was, um, supportive to hear. Um, there was things I missed and had to skip and move around, and my supervisors and the rabbis there were really wonderful at TBZ Temple Beth Zion in, Brookline, Massachusetts, for a shout out. And then the second year, I was, working at Boston University, Hillel, and, the staff there was very supportive, for the staff who knew. It was a different dynamic, I was working with college students, and I certainly had a supportive staff, but I was, like, really, like, full on into my stuff, at the Hillel, and whenever I had to move things around, I had to move things around. Um, but
But there was some students who
yeah, there were some students who I
reached out.
shared with and, like, grew closer in that way, but I wasn't as open, I would say, as the synagogue. Now that I'm a community rabbi and also, like, thank God we have 2 children, um, I and we are very open about it, and we share often, not all the time, like, often. We actually don't share our personal stories so much, but we kinda share one-liners of we had fertility journeys or miscarriages or did IVF, so folks know, which we've talked about before, you and I, and, so people know that we had a fertility journey, have a fertility journey, and that it's a part of our story, and I talk about it in Divrei Torah, and I talk about it in my teaching, but it really feels like I'm talking about it more from a place of of scars, in a mature, accessible way. Um, and so it doesn't feel like I'm kind of pouring my trauma out to people, but like really using my experiences in my life to help people connect with Torah. And that feels powerful and important.
So we did our first transfer in December 2022. It failed. I think that was just like the lowest part because we were always able to get pregnant. And then like they handed us this like perfectly tested pregnancy embryo and all of the things that they do for IVF. And then like I didn't get pregnant. I was like, "What?" That's like I'm so confused.
And you
By the
test
way,
you're good.
no oh, sorry, what you were
I say
saying
like
something.
clinics tell you, at least our clinic, don't do a pregnancy test because you don't want a false positive,
Oh, that yeah.
and should wait for the
I
testing.
hate
But
I
we test it every
yeah.
day at home, and like
Yeah, whatever. I, like, know myself again, I'm like, I think there are certain things people say because they wanna, like, pad how you feel, like, "Oh, miscarriages are uncommon, this won't happen again," or "Don't test at home because maybe like, I don't know. I felt like I was a big kid, and I can deal with the and I just, like, need information I just needed to get information, and I was like, "I can handle kind of what happens from here, but thanks,
Yeah,
guys."
by the way, like, just to the point of, like, a perfectly tested embryo, like, being, like, implanted in, quote, "perfect environment" that's been manipulated by medicine and then having that fail, like, people in the world don't know that that is possible. They think you're gonna do IVF and you're gonna put like, "Oh, well, you took care of your genetic issues, the reason you were having miscarriages, so, like, it should be all fine now." Like,
Yeah.
people
yeah.
don't know.
Well, even, like, PGTA tested embryo like, there are PGTA tested embryos that have genetic issues because, as you know, like, this is a tiny sampling of a tiny cell of in 2025, still just, like, the best we can get. So it's all just kind of I mean, it's science and it's data and it's all great, and also, like, you're still crossing your fingers and just, like, kind of sending whatever into the
Mhm.
universe. So that transfer failed. We then immediately did another transfer the next month, again, because we were like, "We just need to keep moving." And that one thankfully worked, and it was just, like, a very, very challenging pregnancy. I was finishing up law school. We found out I was pregnant, like, the day we came to New York, for this interview for Base. We, like, drove up here from Boston, did the interview, saw Harry Potter on Broadway, then drove back, and, like, then I was so sick. We were both interviewing for jobs. It was our final semester of grad school. I was so anxious. I was studying for the bar. I was having panic attacks every single day because I literally thought that she was gonna, like, die inside of me at any moment. Um, and we moved here, and finally, it was my OBGYN who we love.
We couldn't
We
get an
love.
OB at first.
No one would take me because I was, like, 25 weeks pregnant, and I was like, "Well, what do you want me to do?" Like, this is and I wasn't gonna
Yeah.
call when I was 12 weeks pregnant because I was like, "I'm probably gonna have a miscarriage." I don't think we even knew we were moving to New York then. But we got here. Our doctor took Danny spent, like, 2 days calling every OBGYN in New York City because I was studying for the bar, and no one would take me. She took me. She was the one who was like, "You need to not take the bar." Like, I wasn't planning on practicing law.
Which was your idea to begin with. She was
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
recommending.
I was just, like, literally having these panic attacks every day, and she was like, "Your job doesn't require you to be practicing. You don't wanna be practicing." I was, like, taking myself we were going to the hospital, like, every week because I was like, "I think she stopped moving." And that was such a good decision. I remember her, like, sitting on the phone with us at night one night where we just, like, cried. She was so great with us, and fast forward, everything was great and healthy even though I was very anxious. We were both very anxious, and our daughter was born, our oldest daughter was born on October 7th, 2023.
Oh
Uh,
my god.
yeah.
Oh, I
So
thought you knew
I
this.
did not I you know what? It's, like, now somewhere in the recesses of my brain, like,
Yeah.
I'm remembering, but I did not
yeah.
remember. Wow.
So,
So
that had a lot of complexities to it because on one hand,
I
uh
I think there's a lot to share on
okay,
that.
yeah, we can
I don't
go
wanna
back to that,
truncate that. There's a lot to share there, yeah.
but I wanna share about Avi being
Yeah,
born
of course. I
also
think we can
a
Yeah.
year later.
something we can
Okay,
continue the conversation
yes.
maybe.
I Danny, can you in these, like, last can you share about your anxiety? Like you said, like, both of you said, like, both of you were worried during this pregnancy and, like, she was having panic attacks. Both of you were going back and forth. I mean, to go back and forth to the emergency room every 5 seconds, like, I that is so real, and that is what so many people do. What was the experience like for you, though? Because you were not carrying the baby. You didn't have that real-time feedback of, like, feeling the kicks or not. Like, what was that like for you?
I think it's a balance between wanting to support. I certainly have my own anxieties of obviously wanting not believing that there'd be a baby until I saw a baby, like, um, and all of the comments that annoyed me continued to annoy me. But I think also there was a balance where I
Like
was trying
li like
to enjoy your sleep or congrats, you're having a baby, and be like, actually, Tamara's pregnant, and like we hope it'll be a baby, but like, yeah. And again, like I said earlier, really not kind of easing up, not really like breathing until like 32 weeks or something. Even so, and then after Ruthie was born, like really exhaling. Um, and I think it was a balance for me between wanting to support Tamara, but also like trying to be rational. I remember like Tamara wanted to get a home heart rate monitor, a home Doppler. And be like, oh, does this make sense? Is it just gonna like perpetuate our anxiety even more because we're gonna want to use it every 30 minutes? So that's just an example of what it means to kind of give into the anxiety or try to quell it. And yeah, it was just constant roller coaster of emotions until she was born. Um, and Tamara ended up being induced. Um, she kept like asking our doctor, like, "Can you induce me now? Can you induce me now? Can you induce me now?" And like, eventually, like, it made sense actually for the moment and for Tamara's anxiety. And the doctor said, "Yeah, actually, there's no reason why not to." So she was induced. Um, and then, like I said, like when Ruthie was finally born, that's when like really could breathe. Um, on top of being in a new city where we have no family and navigating new jobs for the both of us, new city, um, and all the anxieties that come with that.
Yeah, it was a lot, a lot.
Yeah. Our daughter Ruthie was born on October 7th, 2023, 22nd of Tishrei, 5785. 5784. 5784. Um, and yes, you know, I remember so it was a Shabbat, it was over Saturday, and I remember as sometime in the early hours of the morning, maybe, I don't know if it was 5 or 6 in the morning, Tamara woke me up from the chair and said, "Danny, there are these reports of these attacks in Israel, and, not so much info at the moment, but really, like, um, as we slowly started to learn things and eventually our daughter being born, um, realizing that we had to go very inward, and just completely tune everything out. And so we immediately deleted our social media
Like,
and
when
turned
we got home,
when we
like,
got home. Yeah, I mean, we certainly at the hospital we certainly weren't on our phones because we were at the hospital and having a baby. But deleted social media, did not watch the news, like not even the weather, and really, really inward. Um, and And when we got home and we settled in, we sent an email out to our community to base Upper West Side because parental leave had started, and we sent an email
October 8th.
on October 8th or October 9th, that Monday, I guess. Um, and we sent an email saying we're really overjoyed to share that our daughter was born uh, over Shabbat. And it was a difficult journey for us to get to this moment, and we're so joyful, and also holding in our hearts all those who are still on a fertility journey. Um, and also we know that there's a lot of pain in the world right now in Israel and Gaza, and um, that this awful tragedy is amidst our community right now. At the same time, like for the sake of our family, um, we are
Yeah.
we're like I forget the delicate wording we use, but we said like we are taking care of our family right now, and we will not be on email or Instagram or WhatsApp or anything or phone. And everybody respected it. There's one person who called me, but like I think she probably just didn't read the email. Um, but everybody respected it. Um, and when we started making the rounds, telling people that our daughter was born, you know, I sent an email to my rabbinical school listserv, and we sent an email to our dear friends and loved ones. Most people in our community, in our broad community, are Jewish, and it brought a lot of light and a lot of hope and joy to people in a very, very dark moment. There are people who, uh, um, colleagues of mine, peers of mine from rabbinical school who I was friends with, but like not my best friends, who emailed me back saying, "Wow, I can't tell you like how much joy this brings me to read this at this moment." And it was very clear um, how wonderful her birth was in such a dark moment, and at the same time, um, there was things happening in the world that like did not revolve around our family. And so like if she was born any other moment, I think we would have had a lot more. Um, yeah, you want to say something?
No.
So
What?
I
Sorry.
think I think
I
I
think I
think
know what
people
you're
would have
trying to
shown up.
say.
I think people would have shown up differently, knowing that we had 2 years of fertility journey. I think people would have shown up like differently had not been amidst this tragedy. Um,
Yeah,
and
I
so
think
it was a sensitive moment. Yeah. Anyways,
no,
I
sorry.
want to hear what you're gonna say.
Yeah, look, I have a lot of feelings about this happening when it happened, most of which I have worked through, which is great. I think both are true. Like, this October 7th was, like, a really, really horrible day, obviously, literally so much more beyond Danny and I, and here so much more beyond any type of pain we can imagine that has very little to do with us. In the moment, this sounds, like, horrible to say, I felt like cerebrally, I knew that this was so much bigger than me and none of this had to do with me and that my problems were nothing. I felt, like, so angry that we had, like, worked and worked and worked and worked and finally gotten her here, and we were at for years at other people's baby namings and other people's whatever, whatever, and then we had her and our whole entire world, being a rabbi, so many of our friends are everyone was in crisis mode, and I felt like and ever even I we've had family members make comments not thinking, but about, like, October 7th was the worst day ever, and, like, October 7th was 2023 was the best day of my life personally, and I felt so horrible for so long saying that and feeling that, but that's just the reality. I felt so much, like, pain at first, like, this was such a great thing, like, how could this happen on such a horrible day? Why does everyone use October 7th as this, like, almost like the slur, like, October 7th, and it was like, no, that's my kid's birthday, like I said, I've worked through a lot of that. We spent the first year anniversary, our daughter's for our Ruthie's first birthday last year, totally as a family, and we weren't on parental leave. We were like had community obligations. We did other things around the anniversary and other things. But we spent that as a family to ourselves, and yeah,
Because we
anyway,
wanted to, for her first birthday,
yeah,
we
we
wanted to
wanted,
highlight her accomplishment
yeah,
of being a
but
one-year-old,
yeah,
and and
but I felt a lot of
yeah.
anger and a lot of pain, and yeah, there's a lot of people who knew about our fertility journey when we were going in it because, like I said, we were very open, but didn't know I was pregnant with Ruthie. So I think when we shared it with people, I think it was even for a lot of people, it was more, like, exciting because they didn't even know that was happening. But yeah, anyway, so she was born. It was hard. It was great. Uh, we that then in I'll just
I'm gonna interrupt you for a second.
yeah.
You know, there was a family that I have been in contact with who had has had a horrific fertility journey with multiple losses. Um, and one of their losses happened a couple of days before October 7th, 2023. And it was a pregnancy that was like had gotten further than any of their previous pregnancies. And they were so excited about this baby, and the baby didn't make it again. And they shared with me and also have shared on I Was Supposed to Have a Baby. We have a poem from them. I'm not going to say their names, even though their names are on our website. They have been public about their feelings, but they felt so conflicted about October 7th. Mind you, also, this is a family. I don't know if I said this. It actually brings the point home even more. This is an Israeli family.
Mm.
Um, they felt really upset that the communal grief and horrificness of October 7th overshadowed their own personal grief
Mm.
because they lost this baby that they desperately wanted, and then everybody forgot about it because everybody was caught up in what was the most horrific tragedy that has happened to the Jewish people in a very long time. And I heard it from that side also. And so everything that you're sharing with me right now makes perfect sense. Like personal, like when we think about our lives and when we think about community and when we think about the world, like it first starts with individuals, with couples. It's about the family unit first, and then you bring everything else in and everything else even beyond that. And if the family unit itself is either going through tremendous joy or tremendous tragedy, regardless of whatever else is happening in the world, like every family is a silo unto itself, right? And each of you have to be strong together
Yeah.
and be happy together, and then the rest of the world can kind of come in. So I so much appreciate what both of you shared here.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm
Um,
sorry to hear that about that family. I think I know what story you're talking about because I think I've read it on your page before. But yeah, we're all part of many different micro communities, like you said, our family being kind of like the penultimate one. And at the end of the day, like we are all human and we're kind of all just like balls of emotion, even if we can like have sophisticated brains to sort through why things don't fully make sense. Um, and I, yeah, Ruthie's baby naming was the 8th day after she was born, like we did for Avi, and we had it in
Hold
our
on,
home.
you need to tell people who Avi is, so you'll get
Obvious,
the
Oh,
obvious,
Avi's
our, obvious
Avi's
our
our second
second child.
daughter.
Who?
which
Yeah.
Uh,
we're gonna get
yeah,
to in a
Yeah.
second. Okay.
I made Danny take our mezuzah down from our front door because it was the first Shabbat after, and I think it was just like a scary time, and we were hosting the baby naming at our house, and I just remember being so angry that we had to do. I mean, we didn't have to do that. I wanted to do that, but like, just yeah, I think that was just like
Yeah.
whatever. It was a hard one. And then I was like, why is this happening? This is like a good day. Anyways, Avi.
Tell me about Avi.
Yes.
So we very, very lucky and had like a really, really wonderful I had a really wonderful postpartum experience. Partially because of some things we chose to do, and partially because like anything in life, you get just lucky and we had a good experience. Um, we at like 2 months, 3 months postpartum made a appointment to see a fertility specialist here in New York City because all of our embryos were in Boston, are still in
Still in
Boston.
Boston. Yeah.
Um, and and we're like, okay, we want to start the process. Like we have these embryos, like I don't know, whatever. Around that time, this was like December 2023. We didn't know, like we were like, I think we want to try sooner than later. My thought process was I would always prefer to have a small age gap and be like, what is going on, than to want to have another child and not be able to. I was like, the first one I'm sure is hard, but like it's not going to be as hard as um wanting something and not being able to get it. So I'd rather like shoot for the stars, and like if I am so lucky to even be able to have another child, like I'll take it. I'll take whatever. I'll take whatever the universe wants to give to me. So we started the process soon. Around this time, I had a family member who was looking for an egg donor, and that I because of, I think, a lot of our experiences of knowing what it was like to wanna grow your family, I had offered to donate eggs to them. This kind of stirred up some stuff in our family and whatever, but this was an offer I made, and so I kind of that kind of expedited the process because then I was like, "If I'm gonna do another egg retrieval, maybe I'll do a 2-in-1 and make more embryos for our family and donate eggs, for these folks," and I started then talking to a fertility doctor, their fertility doctor. It kind of just jump started the process. Around a couple months later, so this is, like, March 2024, um probably because of all the miscarriages, I don't know. Their doctor, what's it called? Rejected me. They were like, "No, you can't be an egg donor. I think your history is just not great." Um, and so we tried on our own, and we're like, "We'll just give it one try, and if this doesn't work, and, like, we're not able to get pregnant or most likely we'll have another miscarriage, we'll go to our embryos." Again, this was, like, right around those few weeks where the egg donor thing looked like it wasn't gonna work out, so we were like, "Okay, we're kind of like,
That
yeah,
door was
this."
closed.
That door was closed, and we were
Yes.
like, we're kinda, like,
Which I have my own family now.
yes,
Yeah.
free for a second. So, yeah, we got extremely, extremely lucky. We tried on our own without medical intervention, and I got pregnant, and at every point, I was like not at every point, I think up I had a lot less anxiety than when I was pregnant with Ruthie. I, like, physically saw that I could have, like, a live baby. So, I think with Ruthie, I just, like, didn't believe it could exist because it hadn't existed, and again, I'm, like, a pretty pragmatic person, so if something hasn't existed, I don't really understand how it could exist. With Avi, I was pretty skeptical at first. I think, again, when you've gone through loss, you just calibrate your brain differently. Um I just we would never make plans after an early ultrasound appointment for any pregnancy because you know what it's like to cancel those plans, and I look at people who have go to ultrasounds and then they, like, have
Yeah.
plans to go to drinks after, and I'm like, "That must be so nice." I, like, clear my whole calendar. I'm sure many people know exactly what I'm talking about. You just, like,
That's
have
like
to
the
clear your calendar.
essence. Yeah, and that's like the essence of pregnancy after loss. That is like quintessential
Yeah,
pregnancy after loss. You, like,
yeah,
can't plan it all because, like, of course, like,
yeah.
Yeah.
it could go wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, so you're just calibrating, so we, like, asked my parents to come out for this first ultrasound because we were like, if it doesn't go well and I have to have a DNC, like, someone's gonna need to be here with
Yeah.
Ruthie, we don't have any family in town, and it luckily just went well every step of the way, and the people who, had offered to be an egg donor for actually just had their own baby,
Wow.
couple
Oh,
weeks
amazing.
ago, right around
Yeah.
um, Ruthie's birthday, and yeah, so Avi was born November of 24, and they are 13 months apart,
Wow.
and it is the biggest blessing of my whole life. Every day I'm like, this is I don't know. People like it is hard, but it is so much easier than all of everything we just talked
Of
about for an
course.
hour because it just is, and I don't need to explain why.
Yeah.
And all of that being said, I just think we find ourselves extremely lucky. We think about this every day.
Yeah.
Every day when there's a hard moment of parenting, we look at each other in the face and we're like, we are so lucky. Um, these are problems we were dreaming about. These are problems so many of our friends and family would be literally dreaming about. And like for their sake and for our former ourselves sake, we just need to get over it.
Yeah.
Like because these are we're good and we're very lucky.
Yeah. And I think, like, I remember when Ruthie was born and thinking about now, I remember when Ruthie was born, talking with my family, how, like, how happy I was whenever she would cry or, like, have a really poopy diaper or, like, any of these moments that a lot of people complain about, like, how wonderful it was. And I remember people saying like, "Oh, it's the honeymoon phase." Like, but like I still feel that. Like, yeah, of course I still get frustrated, but I try to remind myself that like this is such a blessing to have, them both screaming and Ruthie like not
Yeah, because it used
wanting to
to
go to the
just be
bathroom.
us
Like,
screaming.
it's incredible. It's an incredible thing, and that I think has really stuck with us for
Mm.
the most part. That gratitude for the difficult moments. And like thank God we haven't had like major challenges with their development. Um, but I think for us, and I know for a lot of people, the gratitude for moments when people normally complain, um, is something that's really, I don't know how we would be as parents before this, but like it's something that's really impacted how we are parents. Our journey has really impacted our parenthood in that way for just the gratitude for the difficult moments. Um, yeah.
I I think that's so beautiful, and I think the fact that you both of you can go there, that you can really center yourselves and remind yourselves of that gratitude, I think is so powerful because look, raising kids is hard, and raising 2 kids that are so close in age is really hard, and sometimes we forget, like, look, I mean, most of the people in the audience know I had twins after all of my losses, and they were really, really hard, but I also tried to center myself, but I wasn't so successful all the time. It's not like I didn't appreciate that, but it was like, "Oh my god, I can't believe this one is not nursing and this one is not nursing, and then I have this infection and they have this and that." It's just it is hard. It is a really hard exercise. Gratitude is hard, even when you've been
Totally.
Yeah,
paying
no.
for it.
We
Totally.
don't
And
we
not to
don't
say like
say
we're
yeah.
perfect, meditative people. Like
No.
we get frustrated, we get stressed out, of
And it's
course.
okay. It's okay to
But
be grateful for something and also be
yeah,
that is also totally okay. But
yes,
I think there's just a different perspective.
totally. And when people ask us how's it going, how's parenthood going, like it's amazing. It's a blast. We absolutely love it and feel really grateful for it. And yeah.
I read this quote once that's, like, always that I think about a lot, I don't know, when you're, like, going through all of this horrible stuff, which I'm sure everyone who listens to this, who's in it, knows what I'm talking about, where you, like, save every little, like, inspirational something, or, like, someone says something, I don't know, that was what I grasped onto. I'm not, like, a big quote person, but that was, like, really what I would grasp onto during this time. I, like, had this bracelet that said, what did it say?
Said this true shall pass.
This too shall pass. Yeah, it said in English and Hebrew, and I used to wear it to like every IVF appointment. Every time I was getting my blood drawn, because I would just look down. And I was like, when I don't have a kid, this too shall pass. And when I have a kid and it's like horrible at times, this too shall pass. Anyways, I read this quote that was like, the thing that's so hard about going through a fertility journey or wanting a family, not being able to, is that you can't ever put it away. When you have a kid, even if your problems are hard for the most part, obviously for the most part, there's always like some type of pause. Like your parents will come or you have a babysitter for a night. You can like pause for a night or you pause. There's some sort of like pause, whether it's often, whether it's what the cadence is. You can't like hand your infertility to a babysitter for the night. And there's a sense of trauma that comes with never being able to, like, leave something traumatic. And I think about that a lot when things are hard. I'm like, "Okay, I can take an hour break." I used to not be able to take an hour break, and that's a privilege to be able to take a break.
I think it's so profound and so true. Right. It's you go to bed thinking about it, you wake up thinking about it. You go on vacation, you think about it, you go to a different city, you think about it, you go to work and you think about it, and it doesn't go away. Doesn't go away. But yeah,
Yeah. When after Ruthie was born, I slept for, like I wasn't nursing, so I'll say this, and Danny was my night nurse, I will say. But I slept for, like, 9 or 10 hours a night, every night, because I think my body was
Yeah.
like I was so calm, and that again, that is not everyone's experience, that is, I think, a pretty niche experience, but, like, when people used to say, like, "Oh, enjoy your sleep now," when I was pregnant, I was like, "I have panic attacks every night," like and when she was born, Danny and her would sleep in one room, I would sleep in the other room, I would slept so calmly because I was like, "She's alive, she's with Danny, like, I'm
Yeah.
a mom, it's great, wake me up in 10 hours." So I just think everyone I don't know. I think it just changes you, and different people have different experiences. But that's a tangent and a side note
Yeah.
for another podcast about all the stupid things people say to you about parenting. And
I was gonna say that then you have to get a different host because
yeah,
that's
that's a
not
different that's yeah,
that's
I
a
have a
different
lot of thoughts
podcast.
about that, but another night.
I want to close with the two of you with two questions, two different questions actually. One is Tamara, you kind of alluded to it a little bit already of like you're both very different people from a personality perspective. And so I'm curious what were the things during this horrific time for each of you? What were the things that helped you that gave you solace? Like you said like these little quotes, the bracelet that you made, like what were the things or what were I always ask about food, like, were there any foods that were comforting? Because, like, I'm a big foodie, but things, people, places, experiences, things that were helpful. And this part 2 of this is also just how did you each support each other or know what each of you needed, being that both of you are so different? And, like, just talk a little bit about that and relationships because typically, I mean, when we talk about men and women obviously need different things, but the two of you also needed different things. And I think there's a lot to learn based on the two of you and hearing that piece. I think that people will get a lot of pointers and strength from. So I don't know. I should have probably asked those in two separate questions instead of all together. But so I'm happy to go back. But
Yeah,
whoever
no,
wants to start, go ahead.
it it's all related because we first off, I feel like the now, but especially the 2 years leading up to Ruthie, like, we very much got so much closer. We were close before, but, like, we got so much closer from this difficult journey. There's couples where it brings them apart, but thank God, like, we got very close, and our bond deepened and our love and marriage deepened, um, and also we support each other at the same time in ways that we each needed. So, when we could, we were both still trying to exercise and eat well, and we weren't getting much sleep, but like, we tried to take care of ourselves physically when we could, and let the other person make room for the other person to do that. For me personally, like, prayer has been a big constant and was a very big constant, um, in support and prayer and learning. And I also, in a different vein, I started going to the movies by myself, which was wonderful just to sit in a dark theater for whether it was like a superhero action
Yeah, that
film
is a
or
nice
an
start.
emotional crier. Like, it was just great to sit in a dark theater for 2, 3 hours with popcorn and just be by myself, walk there, sit, walk back. It was great. Um, and one thing that I think really brought us together in the moment was we went to, except for maybe like 2 appointments when you're pregnant with Ruthie, we went to all the appointments together, even if it was like a 15-minute blood draw, half hour away, or certainly all the check-ins for the pregnancies, like everything we were at together. Just like that's how we were, and I had a flexible schedule as a student and as a student intern, like I had that. But that was for us very important and kind of a non-negotiable for both of us as much as we could. Yeah.
Sorry, the questions were, how did you support each other? And then
What did you
what did you need?
what did you need and what was helpful for you?
Um, I mean, Danny, I think it's pretty clear that Danny is like probably like the most supportive partner in the world. This was never like a me thing. This was always an us thing. So I feel like I can't even like conceptualize what he did to support me because everything was just like the two of us in it together. I mean, Danny like did all of my medication for IVF. Danny did, like I said, spent hours calling OBGYNs in New York when we were moving. Like he did that summer actually. The summer, yeah, the summer we were before we started IVF, right after the second miscarriage. in the middle of the third, he was doing his clinical pastoral education at the hospital, actually, where we had our first 2 miscarriages, and it was just I mean, it wasn't funny.
It was
Looking
like a
back, it's
chaplain intern,
yeah,
basically.
so where you're in rabbinical school and you're interning to be a chaplain. Um, s so it was funny because he was learning, like, in real life, the skills of how to, like, be this, like, supportive chaplain at the hospital, and then, like, we kept showing up to the hospital. Like, one of my miscarriages, I joked, I was like, "Can someone send me, like, the intern chaplain?" And the doctor, like, didn't understand that I was joking. Anyways, like, he was really, like, honing these skills, and then we were, like, kind of in real life needing them. Um, anyways, yeah, I think Danny just I wish that, um I wish more partners like him existed, in the world in this space, so I will say that. What was helpful? People who had gone through really, really horrible things in this space who are willing to share it and talk. That's not everyone, and I totally get that, and if you are someone who's not comfortable sharing so openly retroactively or in the moment, like, I think that is totally fair and fine, and everyone needs to protect their own peace. If you are someone, I think, who is comfortable and is open to it, but you're like, "Would anyone care?" Or, like, "Could I be" like, I think the answer is wholeheartedly always yes. I think
Yeah.
it is so much more I would talk on the phone to friends, sisters who had multiple miscarriages. Every time something would happen, when things like this happen to you, I don't know if other people feel like this, it feels like a funnel where, like, I had one miscarriage, and then all the people in my life I knew had a miscarriage, I was like, "Oh, I can talk to them because they've all been through this." And then when I had a second one, I was like, "Okay, but now it's getting smaller, the funnel. But these 12 people, they're people who I not only now like, but I can talk to. Everyone else I hate. I don't wanna talk to them. They're not my funnel." Then you have a third one, and it gets smaller and smaller, and then you're like, "If you're not in this tiny funnel, I don't like you, and I am jealous of your life." Um, and so anyone in that funnel was willing to talk to me. It was helpful. Um, our fam
No, I was just gonna say, oh my god, you have just now explained my entire, like, recurrent loss experience, like, how my friend group and my family group
Yeah,
just got
Yeah.
narrower and
yeah,
narrower, and I can't say the word, and narrower. Yeah, just like a funnel.
yeah. Like, 'cause then if you
Perfectly described.
'cause you had what, like 6, 7?
I had 4 second trimester losses and 2 first trimester losses.
Yeah, so you probably meet someone who's like, "I had 3 second trimester losses," and you're like, "You don't get me." Like, you like, I mean, that
I
sounds horrible.
I knew the only person I knew who had multiple second trimester losses was someone who had 3, and I was like, "Okay, well, I guess you and I are friends for life because nobody else gets it."
Yeah,
And we still are friends for life, by the
see?
way, just
But that takes someone sharing their story and being willing to sometimes, like, wade back into a traumatic place for them for the sake of helping someone else. I just think
Yeah.
all of that is so you exist in a world where everyone has kids, and so you feel like everyone is over here and you're over here. So finding the more people to be over here with you is just the most helpful thing in the world. Our family and our family was extremely helpful. Danny's parents came to um to Boston, like, right after our first miscarriage for Thanksgiving, and
Oh,
they weren't
people
supposed
came
to
at moment's notice.
everyone
Our family
came.
came at
His
moment's
his
notice.
mom came right before my second transfer. He was in Israel for work, and I was like it was, like,
Oh,
the week
right.
leading up.
Yeah.
Like, it was just me and his mom and very close to his mom. Like, my parents came. Everyone did so much, and in these moments, you focus on the people who aren't doing the things or accidentally saying the wrong thing, but as a whole, looking back with a clear mind, we had such a good support system. Um, and yeah, and then I think lastly, just like doing things that make you feel good. Every time after I had a DNC or any type of procedure, when I was cleared to work out again, I would do like such a hard, good workout. I would call it like my post miscarriage workout because it was like I hadn't been able to work out like that in so long when I was pregnant and then recovering. And I would just do this like 60-minute intense and I would feel so good. And I'd be like, yeah, I couldn't do that for a couple of months, but now I can't. Every time we had a miscarriage, like we would like go get sushi with friends, like just the things that you like for some people, like you can't do or choose not to do. Um, I yeah, I just think we did things that made us feel good because you have to when you don't feel good. That's how you like get through every day.
I I I I also I can't I every so much of what you're saying is reminding me of my experiences. I'm just remembering that immediate workout, that first workout also, where I was, like, pounding my feet on the treadmill. I'm like, "I'm so angry, and I'm so this, and I'm
Yeah.
now can work out hard." Yeah. I
You're
like
like, no, it, like, sears into your I still have bookmarked on our Peloton that first workout I did after my first miscarriage, and I sometimes go back and do it, and I'm like, "Is this such a good workout, or I just remember it in such a good way because I felt so good being able to move for the first time in a couple months?" I don't know. I think it's a good workout, but
yeah. I think you're probably right. I, um I have one last question for you, Danny. First of all, I can't both of you, I can't I have almost no words on how much I appreciate this conversation, and I know that the I Was Supposed to Have a Baby community will appreciate this conversation because people just need to hear it real. Like, they just need to know all the nitty-gritty and the rawness of the horribleness, and also to hear people need also hope as well, and not every story look, and I Was Supposed to Have a Baby, we hold all stories, right? And not every story has a happy ending. The 2 of you do have 2 beautiful happy endings, and I think there's something really powerful about that, and you also describe how you move through all of the pain and in the journey and in those years and give people the light and let them know even in the dark moments of how you got through, and maybe they can take some of it also and figure out how they're going to get through as well. Um, I'm just so grateful. But I have one last question.
Yeah.
And maybe I think it and Danny, I'm gonna ask it to you, but I think maybe it actually just speaks to the way Tamara said that you just showed up at you were there all the time at every appointment, at as much as you could, as all of the things. Um, for the partners out there, for the spouses, for the partners, for the other people in the relationship, the people who are not carrying the pregnancy, it's sometimes hard to I hear from people, it's sometimes hard to understand what's going on in the other person's life. It's sometimes hard to put yourself in their shoes. You're not going through the hormonal pieces, you're not going through the physical changes. Um, you are a person who very much was enmeshed in this process from the beginning in every single moment. So I'm curious about your advice to the partners as to how how they can show up and how they can be part of this. Especially for people who it doesn't come natural. It feels like for you it does come natural, and this was more of an extension of your personality. But for many people, it doesn't come natural, and maybe just some suggestions also as clergy, as a rabbi, on how people can show up for each other.
Yeah. Um, I'll address the partner part first and then the clergy part. Um, we live in a society that, to some extent, values, leave, time off, like once there's a baby. Uh, and it should be much more, but like to some extent. Um, we don't live in a society that like values, gives time off for fertility journeys of any kinds, losses, for the most part. Um, and I think as much as we can push back against that and just like accept that this has to be our top priority, like to the extent that we're able to financially, emotionally, and like this is our top priority, and everything else will move. Like, a class I'm teaching will move, or a class learning in, like I will not be at, and it will be okay. Um, and really having the main priority be the experience that we're going through together, Tamara and I, or whoever this is with their partner. Like everything else will move and everything else will be canceled, and that's just how it is to the extent that, like, you're able to continue to live your livelihood. I think a lot of people I think some people have that ability, but don't think they do. So I'm here to say, like, you have that permission to say, I will not be at this 9 a.m. board of directors meeting because of this. Um, some people don't have that flexibility. If you're, working a job where you feel like you'll be fired if you don't make it, like that's a reality as well. But if you have the ability, I encourage you to lean into that. Which I'm grateful I had that. Um, and you know, Also related, like, I cannot take care of Tamara and us as a couple if I'm not also taking care of myself. That's why we have the old adage of im aina nili mili. Like, if I'm not for myself, who am I for? That's why we put on our oxygen mask before we put on others. Like, you have to take care of yourself, um, if you want to take care of others in the unit. Um, and also, like, for me, I would have many conversations, which I think I've mentioned before with you, that I would have many conversations where I would say, like, I'm not okay to loved ones. I would say I'm not okay, but I know, like, eventually I will be, and like, with the support of therapists and loved ones, and just personal time, like, knowing that I'm I was in that very dark moment, but having an understanding, like, hopefully I will get out of it, and acknowledging that it's okay to sometimes not be okay. It's it's okay, and I'm a very cheery, happy-go-lucky person. That was the first time in my life where I was, like, really, really not doing well, and that was fine, 'cause I had hoped that it would be temporary, and thank God it was. Um, and for me, every case is different, like, acknowledging that it's not okay right now, but it will be okay eventually. Like, for me, that was really helpful to acknowledge that. Um, yeah, and to, like, really dig into your relationship, remember that it's really about you 2 and the world, and everything else is on the outside. In terms of clergy, wow, all the things we say, don't say to people, the regular non-clergy people we say don't say to people, who are going through journeys or pregnant, all the more so important. One thing I'll say, which I've mentioned on the other podcast with Rabbi Karen Glazer or the other Instagram lives, is I got an advice from a teacher of mine to really be outward about offering support for folks on fertility journeys, meaning, like, make it known that this is something people can talk to you about. So
Mhm.
on our link tree, on our Instagram, and on the bottom of our emails, we have a fertility support, family growth, fertility support form. People can put it there, and then I'll get a notification if people just want to talk with a rabbi about their fertility journeys. Um, we, obviously, we've talked about, we host often programming and speaking around this topic, but, like, really making sure folks know that this is something they can talk with you about, is important. Um, and Something I've said before, but want to emphasize again: whenever there is some sort of baby simcha, a public one, always acknowledge, even if it's one line, which makes the world. Always say something along the lines of, "We know there are those in this community who are going through their own fertility journey, and we wish everybody has the family that they want." Something like that during anything having to do with simchas around a baby, because that makes the world, as we've been many, many times, the people in the congregation either who skip it because we feel like we can't be at the bris or whatever it is, or are there and just dreading the whole thing. Having one line of a rabbi say, "We're celebrating this joyous moment, but we know there's pain in our community," means the world. So I highly recommend you implement that if you're a rabbi right away, if you're not already doing that.
Can I just add one quick sentence about that? I,
Right.
Danny, I think, tries to speak very openly about, like, just like in everyday rabbi life, about his miscarriages, because I think it's really powerful. We hear so many rabbis talk about their kids constantly, like, "Oh, my kid, blah, blah." I don't think I had ever heard a rabbi, like, openly talk about their miscarriage, and, like, statistically, like, lots of rabbis have miscarriages, but it's just, like, a totally absent thing, and obviously actions are really powerful, but words and imagery, we host in our home, so we really try to use words and imagery in a very powerful way, like, we still have we don't never put our ultrasound photos of any of our pregnancies up on our fridge. I find those to be very triggering. We do have a picture of like the embryo for Ruthie's transfer up on our fridge. It's always been on our fridge, and we have it there as kind of like an if you know, you know. And we've had many people while waiting in line in our kitchen as they scoop up their Shabbat dinner who will make a comment. Um, and it's subtle. Like, again, if you don't know what an embryo looks like, you don't need to. You're very lucky. Um, but if you do know, then you see it and you're like, huh, I don't know if I've ever been in a rabbi's kitchen before with a picture of their embryo up on the fridge. And like, what does that mean? It probably means that this is someone who's safe. And I think that's something really powerful that you've tried to do intentionally.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think it's incredibly powerful in a very subtle way. Both of those. Actually, it's not. They're not subtle, but they're not in your face. This is who we are, and we're not scared, and we're not ashamed, and this is part of what makes us who we are as humans, and we want to support you in whatever you might be going through. So we're safe people. I mean, it's so powerful. It's so powerful. And I'll tell you what the other powerful thing is. I mean, there are a million powerful things about this podcast, but I this might be episode, I don't know, 180 something. We might be at 190. I'm not even sure at the moment. Um, I think there might have only been one other podcast, and I'm not even sure about that, but there might have been only one other podcast where both people in a couple have come on and shared their story.
Oh, wow.
Usually it's one person or the other. And so I really think that that's a testament to the two of you and your relationship, but also both of your willingness and openness to share and to make people feel safe with the two of you and your story. And I'm so glad to be the recipient of it here in the holding of the I was supposed to have a baby community. I mean, this is not for me. It is for me now because we're having this private conversation, but I can't wait for the rest of the community to hear this because the two of you are extraordinary in what you are, in what you do, and what you have shared. So I thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that
Thank
opportunity.
you. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't think we'd be here without this. So there you go.
that's true.